Hey, everyone. Hey, Rube. How are you?
Doing well. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing well. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We're recording this, so you might be doing something fun right now. Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe I'm on vacation.
I wonder where I am right now.
I don't know. Maybe I'm in Oregon.
Could
For
be.
the first time. That's fun.
Yeah, one of 8 states I've never been to.
Yeah, it's one of 6 or 7 for me.
Really?
Yeah.
What are your other ones?
North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, Arkansas.
Interesting. Mine are more of Southwest. I've never been to Nevada, never been to Utah. I haven't been to New Mexico, Oregon, Alaska, Hawaii. I've never been to Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah. But I knocked out North and South Dakota when we had a night preseason game in Minneapolis, and I just drove due west.
How far is that?
Far.
Yeah, I was
past a lot of lakes. And I went for a run in South Dakota, and then I drove up to North Dakota and went for a run in some little town right in the southeast corner of North Dakota, and then the northeast corner of South Dakota.
Okay.
And then drove back to Minneapolis. I probably watched Craig Erickson play in a preseason game, somebody like that. Yeah.
We have another mailbag today.
Mailbags are fun.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sending these questions in. It's been very cool. We set up this email address, and you guys have been really kind of flooding it. It's been great. Eagle-eye at NBCUni.com. I'll leave it up there on the screen for a little
Uni,
bit.
in case you're wondering, it doesn't mean a uniform. It's Universal, NBC Universal. Yeah. That's short for that.
The corporate overlords here.
Yes.
That we love, by the way.
Yeah.
We love those corporate overlords.
Overlords is maybe a little negative.
Corporate big bosses.
Yeah, big bosses.
We love the big bosses. If you're listening, big bosses. We love you. Love those paychecks. Make sure they
I just start the podcast.
Next one.
Before you get yourself in more trouble.
Yeah, we have email here from Bernard. Dear Dave and Rube.
What if it's Bernard Williams, just released by the Eagles?
This is not Bernard Williams.
Okay.
And this isn't even a question. It's a nice comment, and I figured it'd be a good way to start this pod. I'm going to be 62 in July, and I've been going to Eagles games since Franklin Field with my father. My wife and I have lived full-time in New Smyrna Beach, Florida for the last 11 years. That said, I just wanted to let you know that you're my favorite Eagles YouTube podcast. You two have a respectful conversation with one another, sometimes. No gimmicks, no silliness, just good analysis, humor, and insight. Just wanted to say a genuine thank you for the purity of your podcast and for adding to my life in terms of just keeping up with my favorite team ever. We will be in Sea Isle City this year for 2 weeks at the end of July, beginning of August. If either of you are in town during that time, we'd be honored to shake your hands. Sorry, Bernard, that's training camp season, but we do appreciate the offer, and that's nice words.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah. We don't have any gimmicks, do we? We can't think of any, really. We have any gimmicks?
We have some gimmicks.
Yeah.
We've been calling Noah Tongi Noah Tagoa for 5 years.
Yeah, that's kind of a minor one. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, we bring up Hakeem Butler every chance we get.
We do. And Ronnie Brown.
I mean, the Matty P bit.
Yeah, that's kind of a gimmick.
I mean, we're mostly gimmicks now.
We're all gimmicks.
Yeah,
all gimmick. Think about it.
Yeah. All right, next email here from Travis. Hey, Dave and Rube, first-time mailer, long-time listener. I wholeheartedly enjoy the podcast and await every drop. Keep up the good work. 2 questions. First one, how does the question asking hierarchy go in press conferences? It appears like you two get precedent, but otherwise it all seems very disorganized. I was hoping for some clarification on how the business works.
It's a great question. Might be the best question we ever got.
Yeah, there's not a hierarchy, really.
Well, so here's the thing. Like we all kind of sit in the same spot all the time. So I'm in the front, and Dave, you're 2 seats over from me.
Yeah.
And we basically, if you're in the front and closer to the middle, you're going to have an edge because you're closest. You can be louder. You can get Nick's attention. And Nick's pretty good about, like, if he knows that you have a question that you didn't get to, he'll go to you. He'll be like, I'll get you next, and that kind of thing. It's harder the farther back you are just to get his attention.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Nick is he knows where the better questions are coming from as well.
Sometimes he'll avoid them.
But yeah, there's no hierarchy. there's a, I guess there's an unspoken etiquette sometimes. Like if two people are, it usually starts out with like 10 people yelling, and then they all stop, and it's whoever comes in next kind of gets the edge, gets the floor. But if it's multiple people, then it's kind of just comes down to, I'll defer. I'll just defer because I'm a nice guy. There's some people who never do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to mention any names, but they will just keep hammering and talking over someone until the other person stops. It's not a perfect system, but it's better than having a PR guy point and say, all right, you.
So here's the thing. I get asked this a lot, and I know that now it's weird. Press conferences have become like, people watch the press conferences,
yeah,
which has like, that's kind of a relatively new thing. So like sometimes I'll like listen to the press conferences back through the Eagles YouTube, and one of the biggest comments all the time, like, why don't we have microphones for the question askers? I agree that that'd be good for just viewing the press conference, but it kind of kills the flow of a presser. And like, I'm a big follow-up guy.
Right.
Like I really try to listen to these pressers, and like it spurs a lot of questions. And sometimes that kills a natural follow-up. Yeah.
And that's something there's not enough of. Like if Nick says something newsworthy, the next question has to follow that up. And a lot of people don't do that because they're not listening. They're not even paying attention to what the previous, they're just thinking, I have to write a story on James Bradbury, so I'm going to ask it. So even if he's up there saying, we just released, DeVonta Smith, the next question would be like, well, James Bradbury. So yeah, you got to listen, you got to pay attention, and you got to be ready to follow up if there's something, like if he says something newsy. And
I remember there was one classic one. I think it was Doug Peterson, and he was like talking about the Carson Wentz injury. It was like the back injury.
Yes.
And he just announced the starting quarterback wasn't going to practice because he had a back injury. The next question was like completely unrelated.
Yeah.
They was like, hold on, wait a second.
Yeah. The next question was like, about Nelly or something. I remember that. And I think, because the way Doug said it was very casual.
Yeah, and look, I don't even remember who it was. I'm not blaming that person because he just like threw it in. He was like, "Let me do something different today and talk about injuries."
Right. So he ran down the injury, and then he had other injuries in there. And
yeah, he like mentioned Carson among the other injuries.
Yeah, Corey Graham's got that quad, and then and then somebody. Obviously, the next question followed up like, did you just say Carson's not practicing? How concerning is
that? I think it was me because I was like, wait, Doug, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
All right. Second question from Travis. It's influenced by my longtime support for Liverpool football and observing European football clubs in their community. The English football clubs hold in high regard all of their championships, but since the Barclays Premier League started, it is taking precedent over previous titles. Nevertheless, those fan bases seem to have a visceral relationship with the past. The NFL is not so different, the Super Bowl era being similar to the Premier League era. However, as I reflect on our community's disposition toward our heritage, it honestly seems lacking. The Eagles are historically a very successful franchise, having won many NFL championships. However, that seems to be lost on the fan base. Generally speaking, the NFL doesn't appear to honor its heritage and legacy past NFL championships won by different clubs. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts on this? What could we do better honoring our team's heritage?
I don't sense that. I think
it's tricky. I mean, obviously, the more recent.
And they haven't won a lot. I mean, they won 3 NFL championships in the
48, 49, and 60?
Yeah. I do think the 48 and 49 to win back-to-back championships by shutout was a pretty remarkable achievement by those teams. And there's very, very little in the Pro Football Hall of Fame about that. There's one photo of that team, and that's it. I think that there should be more about those Eagles teams. But I think people remember 60, maybe not the 40s, but
it's just tricky the farther back you go.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are you do hear from like some younger fans who don't realize that pre-Super Bowl there were still NFL champions. I mean, it still happened. But I feel like Eagles fans are really connected to the past, maybe more than fans in other cities. Like Green Bay, they know all about the old NFL championships with Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr. Some cities, but Yeah, I always got the sense that Eagles fans knew the past as well as any fans of any team in the league.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next one, Travis has a couple of musical artists at the bottom. He wants to get your take on.
Okay.
Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram.
Love Kingfish.
Okay.
He's a young blues guitarist from Mississippi. He's incredibly talented. Seen him about 5 times.
Yeah. He says he saw Kingfish Ingram and Charlie Crockett at Higher Grounds in Burlington. You know Charlie Crockett?
Yeah, I've seen Charlie Crockett.
Have you? I'm seeing him in a few weeks.
Really? Where's that going to be?
In Bend, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Should be fun.
Yeah, you'll enjoy that.
Yeah. All right, next question.
Is that it? Just those 2?
Yeah.
I want more music questions.
Maybe there will be some more in here.
All right.
Okay. That's from Richard F. On June 3rd, former Eagles president Joe Banner weighed in on Twitter on DeVonta Smith's new contract, saying DeVonta Smith should fire his agent unless he overruled the agent's advice. DeVonta responded to reporters after an OTA. No, man, you can't be counting the pockets of others. I'm where I want to be. This is where I wanted to be. And at the end of the day, it was still life-changing for me. I like DeVonta's response a lot more than Banner's attention-seeking tweet. How about you guys? I should mention before we get into this, Joe Banner has since walked back to talk about firing the agent. I think Joe's a little over the top sometimes, but I think he stands by his thought that it was a better deal for the Eagles than DeVonta.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're DeVonta and that offer's on the table and it's a good offer for you, you take it and you get that money now. You can invest that. What was it? What do you get guaranteed or up front? 20?
No, up front.
Up front, yeah.
Yeah, 20 million signing bonus.
You can put that in a bank. Get a bank book. They sell bank books. Get a little bank book account. But I get what Joe's saying, and Joe's coming at this as a guy who negotiated contracts for a long time. There's something to be said for just having that security, because maybe that offer is not on the table in a month, or maybe you get hurt training. You never know what's going to happen. And if that offer works for you and the money's good for you and you feel like it's a fair deal, you take it.
Someone's got to go first.
Yeah.
Everyone can't wait for the other guy to get a contract, then no contracts get done.
Yeah.
I agree with Joe's sentiment that I do think it's a team-friendly deal for a really good player. But from DeVonta's perspective, it's good money. He has not been the number one receiver on this team. He could be, but he's not.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if he waited a month, theoretically, would he have gotten more if other guys had signed? Probably. But
maybe. Yeah.
If he feels good with it, he feels good with it. And I don't think it was like...
And he wasn't going to get that much more.
Yeah. He'd be, instead of 25 million a year, be at 28 million a year, which is a lot of money, but in the grand scope of this, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And, Joe's a former guest on our podcast, and we like Joe, and he's really smart.
And no one knows this stuff better than him.
Nobody. Yeah.
Maybe he's jealous that he wasn't the one to get this deal done, because he would have done this deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like what DeVonta said. In theory, Joe's probably right, but if it works for you, it works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next question from Ian. Hello. Ignoring the fact that Quinyon Mitchell was drafted in the first round, have you seen enough from him to warrant him starting at cornerback? Part of me is scared of the possibility that they choose the wrong player due to team connections similar to Rager. I'm just looking for your unbiased opinion on Mitchell so far, ignoring the draft pedigree.
They just misevaluated Rager. I mean, were there connections? What's he referring to there? Personal connection. I mean,
I think they just
thought
they
just messed up. They just messed up that. But I wouldn't put Quinyon Mitchell in the same category as I think we've seen. Look, they don't have pads on. I like what I saw from them.
I do too. I thought the other corners probably flashed more in the very minimal practice, and the other ones just being Keely Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers.
Right. But just had more opportunities.
Yeah, I thought Quinyon looked fine.
Yeah, so did I.
Thought they were really good signs.
Yeah,
and I can't divorce him from the draft pedigree, because the Eagles aren't going to do that either.
Yeah, and I think that's one position where you can see in mini camps without pads, you can see if a guy, like, you can't say he can play, but you can see good signs. Like,
We see the movement.
Yeah, how he moves, how he's covering, how sticky he is. And he did all those things. He was always in the right place. You can see the confidence. You can see a little swagger. I thought it was a good start for him.
I did too.
Yeah.
And that battle in training camp is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
It's one where, like, I think he can do enough to win it. I'd expect him to win it. But Keely Ringo's not going down easy. Neither is Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah. And the difference between Keely last year and this year is striking. Mm-hmm. And he was good by the end of last year. Yeah, at this point, I mean, he was just a young 20-year-old kid finding his way. And by the end of the year, I think that really helped him getting those reps. But, I mean, he was confident. He's carrying himself like a veteran now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's not going to give that up easily. That's going to be fun to watch.
Next question, Nicole from Coatesville. Hiya, Dave and Rube. When comparing...
Have you ever been to Coatesville?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't know if I've ever been to Coatesville.
Yeah. Not opposed to it. Just
no, I'm not philosophically anti-Coatesville. No, I'm not.
That's not the stand we're going to take on this podcast.
Some are. I know there's some are, but no, not me.
When comparing statistical performances from different QBs, how do you think a rushing yard stacks up against a passing yard? Our traditional, perhaps dated benchmarks for good seasons passing and rushing are 4,000 and 1,000 respectively. I don't think this means we should consider a rushing yard as exactly 4 times as valuable, but it makes me wonder, is a 4,000/1,000 passing rushing season as historic and impressive as a 5,000 0-yard season? I'm not interested in being exact, but it feels to me the rushing yard from a QB is worth something like 1.5 passing yards, or is this just silly and is a yard a yard? Appreciate your time. Thanks for the pod.
Wow.
I figured you would like this question.
I don't really understand the question, but I do like the question. Interesting. I guess for me, I'm more interested in like yards per attempt, yards per rushing attempt, yards per passing attempt.
Yeah. In general, like these metrics are a little outdated, just the pure yards. But from an aesthetically pleasing standpoint, a 4,000, 1,000 yard season is pretty cool.
Yeah. Who's done that? Lamar.
Has Lamar done that? I don't think he's ever hit 4,000 passing yards.
No. How about who's done that? Lamar's never had.
Lamar's season high was last year, 36.78. And he rushed for, I don't think he only rushed for 821. So like a 4,000, 1,000 yard season is insane.
How about let me see here. Justin Fields?
No, he didn't. The Bears have never had I don't think this ever happened.
Yeah, you're right.
The Bears have never had a 4,000.
The only other guy with 1,000 rushing is Vic, and I don't think he ever had 4,000.
Yeah. No, he didn't. I think his high was like 33.
33.03.
Yeah.
With the Eagles.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a 4,000, 1,000 would be pretty crazy.
Randall in 90 had 4,000, 1,000 if you include the playoffs.
Okay.
He had an incredible year in 90. He threw for no, I'm probably wrong. He was over 1,000 rushing, but he was at 34.66 plus 200. So yeah, 37.
I think in a way you're expected to pass the ball as a quarterback. The rushing numbers are like a bonus.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. I wonder if, I
think the Bears are the only team now that hasn't had a 4,000 yard passer. The Eagles were right there with them for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was Carson who did it, right?
Yeah.
And he barely did it. He went 4,039 in 2019 off the strength of that last 4-game stretch.
Was his rookie year? He was probably fairly close. Yeah, 3,800.
Jalen got as close as he's gotten last year, 38.58.
Was he that close?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he'll ever throw for 1,000, for 4,000.
I would think he would.
Jaws was never over 35.29. He didn't have a lot of rushing yards though. I wonder if the league is going to go, like, it seemed like it was trending really toward rushing quarterbacks I wonder if it seems like things go in cycles.
I don't know if
just
it trended that way. I think there were just a few good ones.
Oh, there were several good ones, and I just think you're putting yourself at such risk playing that way.
I guess, but you're at more risk if you're a statue in the pocket.
Yeah, but I think if you use your movement ability when you need to, and it's not a huge part of your game, I think that's maybe when you're most effective.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
That was the most in the weeds question ever, and I loved it.
It was an interesting one. Who was that from?
Nicole from Coatesville.
Okay, Nicole.
That's how they do things in Coatesville.
I might have to go visit Coatesville more.
Next one from Ryan. Hey, Dave and Rube. I'm sure you get this a lot, but love the podcast. It's so well structured, and you guys have such great info. It's the only podcast I like listening to, especially since it's about my Eagles. Don't listen to anyone that says stick to football. This is a football podcast. Don't ramble. I love hearing the little stories you guys tell. It's so interesting to hear and learn. Also, the continuous inside jokes about Matt Patricia are hilarious and only get better and better. The question I want you guys to answer on the show: if you could sit down to have dinner with one former or current Eagles player any year, dead or alive, which player would you pick?
That's such an interesting question. Why do you go first? I always have to go first. I'm going to think about that.
You can think about that. For me, like, not that I've had dinner with these guys, but like I think I'd want to pick someone that I didn't.
You never talked to.
That I never talked to.
Yeah.
And there are some interesting ones. I think like sitting down with a guy like Chuck Bednarik would be cool. Like the stories he would have would be pretty awesome. So maybe I'd go with him. Just like getting to talk football with Reggie White would be fun. I feel like Chuck would have great stories.
Yeah.
I'd go with Chuck.
Yeah. You know, when I did the book, the 50 Greatest Plays in Eagles History, my colleague that I worked on with the book actually met him at the King of Prussia Mall. And nobody recognized him. Not one person. He told a lot of stories. I wasn't there. But he was still sharp and had a great memory. I would say Al Wistert.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Al Wistert to me is one of the most interesting. Or you know what? Alabama Pitts would be a good one, but he never actually played in a regular season game for the Eagles. He was the guy that the Eagles scouted on the Ossining Correctional Institute Sing Sing football team.
Oh, really?
And he was in training camp. Played in a couple preseason games. Played in a preseason game at St. Martin's Field in Chestnut Hill for the Eagles. It's where they had training camp that summer. Al Wistert. And I talked to him on the phone. I met him briefly at the NovaCare when they flew him out. But that guy, because I'm fascinated by the 48 and 49 teams. Mm-hmm. And he was captain. He was an all-pro in those teams. And was teaching at Riverside High School while he played.
It's crazy.
Imagine that.
What did he teach? Do you remember?
Do I remember? Well, I wasn't one of his students.
I wasn't even making a joke. I was just saying, like, do you remember like hearing what he taught?
I don't know what he taught.
I'm just imagining like your math teachers playing in the NFL championship game.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't have a chance to grade these papers until next week because we're going to LA. But yeah, fascinating guy. I think he'd be at the top of my list. Good question.
Yeah, that's fun. And I'm glad we didn't like current players. We see them.
Yeah. They don't like us.
That's not true.
What current player would you like to sit and have dinner with?
It depends on what kind of dinner you want.
Why does it depend on that?
Not like what kind of food. Like what kind of, are you going for just a fun time? Or are you having like a deep convo? You're going for a fun time. Like Big Fred. Big Fred would be a great person. Fred Johnson.
Yeah.
He's a one-man comedy show.
Yeah, he is funny. I think it'd be fun. I think Jordan Mailata probably be.
That'd be good.
Yeah. I think the cold beverages would be flowing.
A little bit.
Just have a hunch.
All right, next one here. This is from Luke. Hi, Dave. Hi, Reuben. My name is Luke. I'm a big fan.
Hi, Luke.
This is not really football or Eagles related. I just wanted to let you guys know how much I appreciate you. Never miss a podcast or miss a story you guys put out.
Appreciate it.
I get almost all my Eagles news and knowledge from you guys. Even when the players do press conferences, I specifically listen to when you guys ask questions. That's kind of a fun game to play at home.
Yeah. Is it? I wonder if it's hard to tell who's asking the question sometimes since we're not mic'd up.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah.
The two of you never fail to brighten up my day, even when Reuben is clicking his pen through the whole podcast.
I don't have a pen.
Thank you again for all you do. Looking forward to the next show. So this is fun. So we talked about where we sit in the press conferences. Yeah. We sit, like, if you're looking at the stage, we sit to the right.
Yeah.
So if the interview subject is looking to the left, there's a chance it could be one of our questions.
Yeah. Pretty good chance. 40%.
I don't know if it's that high.
35%.
Next one from Joe. Hey, Reuben, Dave. So psyched for this email address, and I do love the pod. Question. Do you think the Eagles are a little thin on the defensive line? Haven't heard much about Nolan Smith this spring. With Carter and Davis, just seems like there's more questions than answers. I hear there is a disgruntled edge rusher up the turnpike for the Jets who may hold out. Could probably get him on the cheap.
Imagine that. Yeah.
That's a Hassan Reddick reference, by the way. Unsigned. Well, not unsigned, but no extension there.
Yeah. I don't see. I think you remember how we talked about how people kind of, since Bradbury was struggling so much, it was always Slay and Bradbury are having a bad year. I think we make the same mistake, not us, but I think some people make the same mistake with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. I think they're in very different places. I think Jalen Carter has shown that he's going to be, like, even if he doesn't get better, he's going to be a really good NFL player. I think Jordan Davis will be in the league, but I think he has a lot more to show than Jalen Carter.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. I think they get lumped in, obviously, for beyond the obvious, the Georgia stuff. Like, they both did drop off last year.
Yeah.
Maybe for different reasons, maybe for some of the similar reasons.
Yeah.
You know, conditioning, I think, is a concern to varying levels with those two guys.
Yeah. But I still think Jalen Carter was an effective player late in the season. I don't think Jordan was. Mm-hmm. Jalen dropped, like, the drop-offs were like from here to here. So
yeah,
when Jalen Carter drops off, he's still really good or pretty good. I wonder, and this just struck me, like, they're so close. They're best friends. They went to school together, as we know. They play similar overlapping positions. I wonder how much, like, if the way last year was going, when they started losing games and defense was playing poorly, they were changing coordinators. As much as they pushed each other early in the year, I wonder if that dynamic changed. Like, the dynamic stayed the same, where maybe one of them was just disgusted with the way things were going, and it affected both of them. And they both stopped doing the things that they had to do, that they were doing earlier in the year, just because they're so close. And, like, you're sitting there and like, man, why are we doing this? You know, and I'm just speculating here. And it might not even have been a conscious thing, but if one of them stopped doing the things that they had to do to stay fit, maybe the other one did too. It could be.
Yeah.
That's very speculative.
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually.
They're so joined at the hip. And it was a really parallel decline.
I think we're in agreement, though, if you had to put, like, money on one guy having a really successful career, it would be Jalen Carter.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know about Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
He's got talent.
No question.
Yeah. Big year for him.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break, and we will have a bunch more questions on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. All right, next question here from Bob from Wilmington. Not on Twitter or X, so I welcome the email. That's nice. We've heard that from a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I listen avidly, enjoy your banter as well as Rube's tangential sense of humor. I laugh at every episode. I have a comment, not a question. Alan McNeil, who we talked about last week, looks like a stud for the Lions, while Milton Williams hasn't stood out at all, and entering his final contract year, appears ready to enter free agency next year. Looks like Tom Donahoe was right and Howie was wrong. Keep up the great work. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Do you know about there are different types of players. Like Alan McNeil's more of a zero tech, like on the nose, and Milton is a penetrating 3 tech. I think they're just different players. I think Milton's been fine.
Yeah. I think Alan McNeil's a good player. I don't think he's that much better than Milton.
Yeah, they're different. Like, I don't think he hasn't become like a superstar in Detroit. They like him there.
He had like 5 sacks last year.
Mm-hmm.
Milton had 4 the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's a huge gap.
Yeah, and I like Milton Williams, so that pick still doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Next one from Jasmine Taylor. Hey, Dave, I was wondering, are you excited to be able to watch the Eagle fly around the stadium on game days? Yes.
Dave likes some eagle flying around.
I do. And Independence grew on me last year. I was sad about Challenger retiring, but
you had a hard time with that.
Life goes on.
You did.
You learn a new eagle. Next question from John.
Dave has some quirks, man. I'm telling you.
Appreciate your show, guys.
Dave,
I've been
interviewed a goat.
Eagles fan since I got out of the Army at Fort Dix. Lived in South Jersey 25 years and have remained a fan no matter what. Devin White has a golden opportunity if he can take advantage of it. I think Howie learned after the TJ Edwards mistake and won't make it again if he can play. So I think this means like extend this guy. Don't let him leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really surprised. I'm going back a couple of years, but I was surprised TJ Edwards, we were sitting right over there 15 minutes into free agency. He was gone. I was surprised they didn't do something to keep him. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, and he's been good. Like he was good last year in Chicago.
Yeah, he was. But yeah,
excited to see if he has like a character arc on the what do they call it? The training camp show? Hard Knocks.
Oh.
Because like a local Chicago guy.
Yeah.
I could see like a camera coming with him home, like he drives home to see his family or something.
Could be. I've never seen the show.
Never seen Hard Knocks?
No, I mean, we spend all day at the NovaCare complex watching football players. Like, I'm going to go home and do the same thing.
Yeah, but you get the behind the scenes stuff.
I don't watch it. I mean, if I was a plumber and it was a show about plumbers, I'm not going to go home and watch a show about plumbers after plumbing all day.
I think that's kind of silly to compare the two.
Why?
Because football is fun.
You saying plumbing's not fun?
Yes. What I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen it, but TJ's. I like TJ a lot. I don't know if his personality is really conducive to that kind of show. He's a quiet guy.
That you've never seen.
No, I mean, he's a quiet guy. No, I have never seen the show, but I've seen, promos, so I kind of understand the approach, but yeah, it could be. But anyway, as far as Devin White, and it's something I asked him about the other day, and yeah, he'd like to be here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if, 2 months into the season, 6 weeks into the season, he's playing well, probably more like 2 months, and Howie tries to lock him up.
Maybe a try. I don't know if
he's a young guy. I mean, he's 26.
He is young. But if you're Devin White and you're playing well,
again, it depends on the number, and I think Howie's pretty good at understanding where that number is.
But if I'm his agent and he's playing well, and you're on a team that maybe you're able to showcase your talent, but a team that's, let's be honest, is not going to pay very much for a linebacker, maybe just try to get him to get to free agency again.
Maybe, and maybe he signs and Joe Banner says I'd fire his agent or if I'm Devin White. I think Howie has a real good understanding of the window of contracts where the players are going to say, maybe I should take that now because look, anything can happen. You can get hurt, your play goes, but it's still a good deal for the team. I think he knows what numbers are going to insult players, what numbers are going to be fair, and what numbers are going to get something done. And
some players just want to shut it down completely during the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And I get that. But also I think the player will tell the agent, look, if you think it's a fair deal, you let me know. But I could see it happening. Again, it's a big jump because we don't know how good, how well he's going to play.
This could be a question we look back on in November, like, oh my God,
yeah,
they're not going to extend this guy.
Wow, they could extend Shaq Leonard. Wow. Yeah, but I think he has a chance. I mean, he was pretty good not that long ago in Tampa, And
I was really impressed with him a couple weeks ago. His perspective on what went wrong for him, and just that he was like worried too much about the contract.
Yeah,
That's a very real admission that I think a lot of guys do. Like a lot of guys get caught up in it and they don't want to admit it.
yeah. I think that was the answer to my question about.
Yeah, I really appreciated his honesty.
Yeah, I agree with you. But look, I think if you're a player and you have a chance to get some guaranteed money, again, it goes back to what we were saying on a previous podcast. Sometimes you just take it because you never know what the future holds. If he plays well, I think there's a chance it happens. And, then you say, well, how we never spend money on a linebacker, never spend money on a running back, and he did that. So it might not be a huge deal, but if Devin White's happy here, he likes it here.
Is there a market inefficiency he can exploit?
It could be.
All right, next one.
I love that kind of talk.
Is from Roy.
Hey, Roy.
If you guys were the GM, would you have fired Sirianni after the epic collapse? And how short is the leash he's on? Let me start there by saying I think this is a common misconception that the GM has this type of power.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an ownership question.
Yes.
And it's not that like Jeffrey doesn't listen to Howie. We know Howie is very powerful, and certainly he's going to listen to the GM's advice.
Right.
But ultimately, that's a Jeffrey Lurie question. And it's not the GM who keeps the coach or gets rid of the coach.
Or hires the coach.
I mean, certainly plays a role when you're a GM like Howie and you've had this power and you've been there for so long. But these are ownership level discussions.
Yeah. That said, I don't think Jeffrey was really that close to firing him. I think there was some circumstances that, I mean, if Nick's plan for coordinators was a really bad one, then maybe.
We know he at least thought about it.
Yeah.
And there was that ESPN report about the interest in Belichick,
Right.
which was fascinating.
Yeah.
And it still kind of, I think, hovers over the team a little bit in a way.
Yeah. But it's not like Jeff Lurie to fire a guy that's been in the playoffs 3 years in a row and has the record that Nick has and was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So I think it would have had to have been a certain set of circumstances where Nick really didn't have a clear plan to turn things around and get the franchise back on the right track, which he did.
And on the GM front of it all, I think Howie likes Nick. I think he likes
He
it.
laughs at his jokes.
No, that's part of it. But I think he likes having a coach who just wants to coach. I don't get the sense that Nick is like hungry for personnel power of any sort.
Right.
And if you're Howie, that's a pretty good situation. If you have a coach who just wants to coach, who you get along with, who's affable and kind of goes along with what the franchise wants to do, I think that's a good situation for the GM.
Yeah.
So if I'm Howie and I'm in self-preservation mode a little bit, I'm thinking like, what's good for me? I think keeping Nick around is good for me.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah. We can ask Howie next time we talk to him in 2026.
I'll tell you what, though, watching Jeffrey walk through the tunnel in Raymond James Stadium, I wasn't so sure Nick was going to be back.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, you could almost see the smoke coming out of his head. He was fired up.
Yeah, it was ugly.
About as bad as it. Oh, the second part of this, how short is the leash? I mean, it's short. Like the pressure is mounting. I think this team does have a certain boom or bust nature to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think Nick knows that and he understands that. I do think if they win 10 games, he's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. If they go 10-7, wild card for first round loss, maybe. If it's ugly, I don't know.
I think it depends on how you get there too.
Yeah. If they're 10-0 and then lose 7 in a row.
Yeah.
But it's certainly going to be interesting. And yeah. I don't want to cover another coaching search, but we may be doing that.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I've covered a lot of those.
It's a weird thing to cover coaching search, isn't it?
It
it's
is.
Like you just at any moment news could break. They might hire a coach, they might interview someone, like things can. I mean, Ben McAdoo's on his way, and then no, he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the guy? Gus Bradley's charter
The
flight
Gus
is
bus.
landing at North Philly Airport.
Mhm.
I'm out there. I'm at Tyler Park, going out for a run with my cell phone, staring at my cell phone, waiting for a text saying, we've hired Gus Bradley.
Equals as much credit as we give Jeffrey Lurie for hiring these coaches. Some luck involved here.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of things have to go your way.
Wanted Ben McAdoo, and maybe Ben McAdoo would have been great here. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like McAdoo, like Adam Gaze,
Yeah.
Gus Bradley, like all these coaches that they didn't hire that they would have hired.
Yeah. He's got a pretty good track record, though.
He does. Like the results end up being pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have it worked out to a science the way they like to think they do.
It's interesting. I guess, let's see, Andy and then Chip. And then, so 3 of the last 4 coaches he hired took the team to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. The only one that didn't was Chip.
And the only one who didn't was Coach of the Year his first year.
Yeah. All right. Next one from Tyler. Have you asked CJ Gardner-Johnson about the podcast he filmed and didn't release? I did actually at his introductory, his reintroductory press conference when he was walking out. So when are we getting that vlog? And he just kind of laughed and said, "I got you," and then left. So okay. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of demand for it.
Yeah, it was great behind, like we talked about Hard Knocks. That was great behind the scenes stuff. Like he's in the trainer's room and no one can really say anything about it to him. He's a star player on a Super Bowl team, but that was fun.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Anais Smith?
I haven't had a chance to see it.
Yeah, video diary. It's funny that he's doing it as a rookie, but he has this vlog and it's on YouTube. We'll give it a little bump there. It's fun because you do see behind the scenes stuff. I'm not caught up on it, but he does them. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. This is from James. Hey, Reuben. He says Ruby and Davy, which I don't like.
Just get to the next one.
What is your impression of Jalen's feelings / impressions of Coach Sirianni? Every time it seems he's asked about him in any capacity, he seems to brush off the question like he doesn't want to be involved inside his sphere of influence. However, when speaking about his coordinators, he seems to open up and speak about their influence on his abilities. Have you noticed the same thing? And do you think he'd be happier with a new head coach? Be well, and thanks for taking the question. I thought his answer about Sirianni at the end of minicamp was interesting. Do you remember this?
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. So he was asked the question about, what has Nick shown kind of giving up power of the offense, which is kind of like a softball to say, yeah. Coach wants to do whatever is best for the team.
Right.
And he didn't say that. He's like, I don't really know how to answer that. I thought it was an awkward moment.
Yeah.
And even if Jalen doesn't have a weird relationship with Sirianni, he's giving off that impression by answering a question like that.
Yeah. I think a lot of times Jalen, I don't know what I'd be afraid of putting too much stock into the way he answered that. Sometimes he just doesn't get the question. It's easier for him to just move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. It could have been that.
Bad timing to do it on a question about the head coach. And it goes back to remember at the end of last year when we're asking him about do you want Nick back?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
People talking about that? All right. People are talking about that.
Yeah.
You're not as insulated as you think you are.
Yeah. I don't know. He's so hard to read.
I do agree there's some danger and
I think he likes to play games sometimes. But there might be something there. I just don't know. And I'd hate to draw a conclusion based on him not answering a question.
I get that.
I just don't know what it means.
Were you sitting there thinking to me, it hit me a little weird. I'm like,
Yeah.
Also, I want these guys to be honest all the time.
Yeah.
But then there's in the back of my mind, just say he's doing a good job so we can all move on.
Yeah. And he's got a contrary streak in him.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree with that.
Yeah. I'd love to know what he really thinks, what he really meant.
Lie detector.
Might be time.
Use it on that.
Might be time for that. I bring it into the NovaCare auditorium every day.
This is a different James, back-to-back Jameses. You've mentioned a lot how good the new defensive backs look in, he says, training camp, OTAs. What's the more accurate way to spin that? The DBs look really good, or Jalen is getting beat by rookie and second-string DBs. Does Jalen look like he's back in form?
I mean, Jalen, he wasn't super sharp in those camps, and I think, you look at the new offense and everything being installed, everything being thrown at him, and yet another coordinator, yet another quarterback's coach, and it's understandable. If this is still an issue 2 weeks in a training camp, I'd be concerned. If it's an issue the first few days of training camp, I wouldn't. I think if it lingers, if they don't look like they're connecting, then there's cause for concern. But I do think the secondary and the cornerbacks are going to give the offense better work than they have. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Jalen appreciates that. But yeah.
If anything, I think it might have something to do with the third receiver, because a few of these camps you had DeVonta there, and so you're going against reps against Paris Campbell and John Ross would be different than reps against AJ Brown.
Yeah. I don't worry that much about Jalen. He's pretty good.
Yeah. And I
think a lot of people are keep looking for him to fail. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of narratives around that, and having a maybe an uneven practice in June just doesn't concern me with a new coordinator.
Yeah, no, it doesn't concern me. And I tend to believe my eyes on the defensive backs though.
Yeah.
Because no matter who's throwing the football, they're anticipating, they're playing with good ball skills. I don't care who the football was thrown from. That play where Keely Ringo tracks it, flips his hips, high points the ball. It doesn't matter whose hand that ball came out of.
Right.
That's just a good play.
Yeah.
All right, next question from Kevin. Rube has said multiple times that this year's wide receiver 3 isn't on the roster right now. I tend to agree. Do you guys have a few realistic examples of players who'd be available for the Eagles to acquire via trade before the season starts? Ideally, we'd be looking for a good receiver on a team that already knows they'll be bad this season, or a player on a team with a surplus of wideouts who are willing to part with one. In addition, we'd want a player who's clearly better than our other wide receiver candidates in Ross, Campbell, and Gata. Otherwise, why bother? Looking around the league, I don't see many good options.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any names. I think that's just something that's going to evolve as training camps go along and preseason games. And I don't know, because I don't know how much Howie wants to give up. I don't know what level he's going to look for.
The guy I keep coming back to is Noah Brown.
Yeah, that's the name you've been throwing out. It's a good one. It's certainly realistic.
He's a guy who can play inside, outside, which I think they want.
They seem to really value that.
I think he would offer a higher baseline than Paris Campbell gives you, but also Robert Woods is down there in Houston as well.
Noah Brown's a Jersey guy, right?
I believe so. Yeah. They just have a surplus right now, and they're a good team. They're not a bad team. So maybe they're not willing to move them, but it could be a player for player. They're not as strong at corner. They have Stingley, who has been good when he's healthy, but I could see I wouldn't trade Keely Ringo, but maybe I think Isaiah Rodgers is an interesting one. I think Eli Ricks could have some value.
Yeah. I think Rodgers makes a lot of sense. I mean, I hate to see him go. It's a great story, but
if he's not going to play here, and Howie can just get him for nothing and get a pick out of him, or
that
get
would be
a player out of him,
such a Howie thing to do. He went to Pope John the 23rd in Sparta.
Where's that?
Sparta?
Yeah.
I've spent some time in Sparta. It's way up in Sussex County. There's a great restaurant there. I think it's called Mrs. Crow's, Kreogh or something.
I love that you remembered that, and you have no idea where your car's parked.
I was there with your former colleague, Sarah Baker, and some other friends on the way to a concert in extreme North Jersey on the New York State border. Sparta's a cool little town.
All right, let's do
Lake Mohawk.
Few more we'll get in here before we call it. Next one from John. Do you think the strong Georgia contingent on defense gives Nakobe Dean a better chance at hitting the heights this year. If he came from a different school, would it be different?
I don't think so. I don't think that matters anymore. He's in year 3.
Probably not. But just having a good front helps him if those guys are good.
Yeah, I think that's true. He's got to get some reps with the ones before it's going to matter who he went to college with or who's playing up front. So we'll see how that develops. It's another really interesting storyline going into camp.
Yeah.
Is he going to start getting more reps with the first defense?
I would think so at some point.
I would hope so, just to find out about him.
Yeah. I think they owe it to themselves to find out if Nakobe Dean can play.
Agree.
Next question from Wade. Hey guys, great pod. You have the most dedicated Eagles podcast, especially during the offseason. Do you think the Eagles will continue to run the brotherly shove another 40 times this season? Can Cam Jurgens pick up where Kelsey left off with that play? Or are they going to try to protect Hurts by running it less? You should add an over-under of brotherly shoves to your season predictions. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Certainly not the same without Kelsey, but I think they could probably still have success running it.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey was a really big part of that. It's like really Kelsey and Landon Dickerson are the engine for that play.
Yeah.
It is funny to me that like the push part of it gets so much attention. And it's like, all right, like Quez Watkins is pushing Jalen Hurts.
I know, you see DeVonta out there.
Yeah, it's not mattering that much.
Yeah.
It's about the quarterback and the front.
I think they'll miss Quez and they won't run it anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll still try to run it. I think I remember Kelsey telling me that, we're still going to have success running it even after I'm not here last year. And
I think he was the biggest key to it. He
was.
And as far as like Jalen, it was more of a wear and tear thing on Kelsey.
Right.
I mean, he's the one in it. Like QB sneak, it's not like a big impact hit for a quarterback.
Right. I mean, there were a couple where he kind of got
someone lands on
buried. Yeah. And he's just got such powerful legs and he's just such a powerful, strong guy that I think that's a big part of it too.
Now, let me ask you this. You have a running back with more power now.
Yeah.
Does that change the equation at all?
See, I've always thought the whole big running back on the goal line was just not reality. I'm not sure. Remember when Ron Dane came out, everyone thought he'd be this goal line back, and he wasn't. That's not it. I think the backs that have success.
Remember when Ron Dane?
Yeah, he was supposed to be like the greatest goal line back ever, and he couldn't because if you're big and slow, I'm not saying Saquon's slow, but
there have been other big running backs who are really good at the goal line.
Yeah, but I find that like the guys that are really good at it are quick. Have great vision, have powerful legs, have leverage, and can, like Darren Sproles he wasn't a big back. Mm-hmm. He was a really little back, but he was a great goal line. But Boston Scott was a great goal line runner. So I'm not sure if that's a role Saquon will flourish in, maybe. But I think they'll keep running the tush push. I do.
We'll do two more.
Sure.
Next one is from Rich. Hi, Reuben Dave. Of the Eagles quarterbacks over the last 20 years, who was/is the best decision maker among Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, and Jalen Hurts?
Not Michael Vick.
Yeah. Certainly not Carson.
Yeah.
I think it might be Jalen. I know the interceptions were up a little bit last year, but
they're up a lot to 15.
Yeah, but before that, I mean, really sound with the football. Maybe Nick. He had that season in 13 where he barely turned it over.
Yeah, Nick did not make a lot of mistakes. Donovan didn't either. I mean, Donovan, when he retired, he was like third in history in interception ratio. And he didn't have
and he got that captain check down label, but that was because a lot of those plays were just like heady plays.
Yeah.
It frustrated people at times, but he wasn't like forcing the football in.
But I'd say Nick. I think Nick first and Donovan second.
I think Jalen's close though.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
last year might have changed your opinion.
Yeah. But if you didn't have last year,
but we do.
Yeah. Last one from Ryan. Hey guys, really cool you're doing this. I've wondered for a while how hard it is to stay professional while covering something that so many people get so passionate about. Obviously, I'm sure there's a line to be towed, but is there a sense of excitement when the Eagles do well from almost a fan's perspective on your ends? Hope that makes sense. Stay well and appreciate the work you guys do.
I think for me, I mean, when they do well, when they go to a Super Bowl and that kind of thing, it's fun because, just more people are reading your stuff and there's more at stake. It's a cool experience. I wouldn't say I get more excited.
I say I get excited to cover the big games.
I get excited to cover every game.
You don't get more excited to cover a big game?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think I do.
I try to stay even keel, Dave. Flatline, level-headed.
Jalen.
Because I figure
main thing's the main thing.
Exactly. I can't be at my best if I'm saying this Dallas game, I'm going to be more excited. And what does that say about my effort in that Washington game? I'm just not.
I'm a big game guy.
Not doing my best. I think I'm an every game guy.
Okay. No, exciting plays are exciting plays. You're excited to see them.
That's a different question, though.
Yeah.
Exciting plays.
Yeah, but I get excited to watch good football, and I get excited to there is something exciting about when seeing the NFC Championship game at the Link and the whole place is juiced. That's fun and exciting for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I enjoy that, but I think I enjoy all the games. Yeah, I don't know. I always felt I did this a long time before I ever covered a Super Bowl, and I always wondered what it would be like. Then 2004 happened, and it was what is this? This is it just was such a letdown.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't do a good job covering it. I could have done better. I was disappointed in myself. And I always say, if I ever get another chance, I'm gonna do much better. Hopefully I did in 2017.
I don't know. I was frozen the whole week. No idea.
You were sick. They were sick in Minneapolis. I don't know why. It was only minus 30. And your hotel was only 50 miles from downtown Minneapolis.
I remember both days of the Super Bowl, you get and you see the field and you're like, okay, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty cool. 17 was surreal just because everything that happened with Carson and Nick. 22 felt different. It just kind of seemed like they were headed there for such a long time. But yeah, it's definitely heightened when you're at that level and you're like, man, I'm going to be writing about a Super Bowl. It's a cool thing.
It is cool.
We should do more of these during the season. I think we should commit to doing a couple mailbags.
Well, we don't need to do the mailbags. We're going to tack on some questions at the end of our normal pods. We have this email address, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. We have it up there on the screen. You can use that QR code. Thanks for all the questions. Any final words here, Rube?
No, I don't.
This is where I tell everyone.
Although, no.
Do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you guys next week. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.